الله وبركاته في حلقة جديدة معنا على قناة كوكب التوحد المرح. شكرا للمتابعة واللايكات اللي تتركونها، وشكرا للسبسكرايب وللدعم الجميل منكم. تراكم تشجعوني وانا احتاج التشجيع لان وقتي ضيق، فادور الوقت اللي اقدر اسجل معاكم واسوي بحوثات واقرا وادور الناس اللي ممكن يجاوبون على اسئلتكم. فشكرا شكرا شكرا شكرا. الحين راح نبتدي حلقتنا، اللقاء مع باربرا الاخصائيه اللي انا سويت حلقات كثيره ومواضيع كثيره معاها. أنا استغليتها بصراحة استغلال كبير جدا. حابة أشكرها لأن عطتنا من وقتها الثمين جدا عشان تجاوب على الأسئلة ونسجل حلقات عن مواضيع مختلفة. فخليني أشكرها وأرجع لكم. شكرا لتلبية طلبنا أنك تجين وتكونين جزء من هذا القناة وتجاوبين على أسئلتنا والمواضيع اللي راح نتكلم فيها في الحلقات المنفصلة والمختلفة. فممتنة جدا بوجودك معنا، من أحد العوامل اللي تساعد في إعطاء المعلومات الكافية للأمهات وأي شخص عنده طفل يحتاج الرعاية تحت بند التوحد. من أنتِ أو من هي باربرا؟ تكلمي عن نفسك وعن التخصص اللي أنتِ فيه.
So my name is Barbara Baskin and I'm a board certified behavior analyst. I have been a board certified behavior analyst for 2 years and I've been in the field now for over 6 years, working with children with autism. I used to work in a mental health facility prior to that. I got my master's in psychology. That's what really interests me, and I wanted to, instead of just working with adults, I primarily wanted to work with kids. So I got into the field. I've worked in a center, institution, and in-home. I love to provide in-home services. That's my, I would say that's my domain for in-home services. I love that. So yeah, that's pretty much about me.
أشكرك على هذا الشغف والحب في المجال. شنو اللي خلاك تتخصصين في مجال التوحد بالذات؟
So my main thing that I love about working with children with autism is they are one of the populations that's truly themselves. I think in life we have so much pressure on us to, fit in and to sometimes just be somebody we're not. But children with autism, I find the most exciting part about the job is they're probably the most authentic and honest individuals, and they're just them. I think it's easy to work with somebody that is just who they are, and I also like to making sure that progress is made with children with autism and their families. I think sometimes it can be pretty difficult for parents, and that's also another reason why I love doing in-home, because whenever you do in-home services, you have that interaction with those parents, so that way the parents can learn and to, learn different methods and different ways to work with their child. So that's the main two reasons why I love working with children with autism.
عندي مداخلة. أنا لما درست الRBT لقيت في نقطة معينة في أثناء التدريبات، حسيت إن إحنا بنحول الطفل إلى روبوت أو ممكن نمحي شخصيته، فتضايقت. بس بعد ما قرأت أكثر لقيت لا، الموضوع هذا يختلف تماما، خصوصا بعد ما شفت دانيل شلون تدرب فري. لقيت لا، هي تطلب منها إن تطلب منها نشاط معين أو مهارة معينة تتعلمها، لكن تخلي بنتي تطبق هذه المهارة بطريقتها الخاصة.
So I agree. I think that a lot of the training that is put in place is very, objective, and it's not so much as a subjective type of training where it should be based on each client that you have or each child that you work with. So we're definitely transitioning out of that robotic method, because even, if we teach a child, manding or tacting, sometimes kids, they may interact in different ways, or if we teach them, different forms of waiting, we just changed the operational definition to fit that child. So we can't have waiting for every single child across the board to wait the same exact way. Some kids may wait, but while they're waiting, they're spinning. Other kids may wait, and while they're waiting, they're flapping or making different humming sounds, things like that. So yeah, I definitely think that the training itself can be pretty robotic, but once you start working with children and your own child and things like that, you have to kind of let that,
شخصية بنتي موجودة تماما في تعليم مهارة معينة لها، يعني شخصيتها لم تمسح وما تحولت إلى روبوت. فهذا شيء جميل جدا، إن كيف نعامل الطفل بطريقة أن شخصيته ما تنمسح، لكن بنفس الوقت نعلمه سلوكيات مختلفة ونشاطات يحتاجها في حياته. أحب شخصياتهم صريحين وما يلفون ويدورون على الإنسان. فأنا أحب أني أكون محيطة فيهم أحسن بكثير من بعض الناس اللي إحنا ما نبي نتعامل معهم لأنه مو صريحين، فنقعد ندور شنو قال وشنو كان يقصد وشنو عوار راس. نبتدي أسئلة المتابعات اللي في الجروب واللي في القناة أو في انستغرام. فخلينا نروح نشوف الأسئلة والأجوبة. أول سؤال، أحد المتابعات قالت لي إن طفلي يسوي إيكوينج، يعني يردد الكلام. يعني مثلا أقول له قول باي، يقول قول باي. فشلون ممكن إن إحنا نحل هالموضوع؟ ثاني شيء، نفس الطفل يتابع برنامج واحد بشكل مستمر ومتواصل طول اليوم، فشلون ممكن إن هي تغير هالشيء فيه؟
So I would say that every situation is a little different. In the past, I've had success with, making sure that the child watches different things. I think that would definitely help. And then making sure that they don't just stay on that same part the entire time. Even though that's not necessarily a bad thing, but to change it every now and then, change is important. As well as, echoing is a part of life, like we all do it. I think with children with autism, it's just a little bit more profound and a little more delayed, right? Like when kids first start speaking, they have to echo after everybody, but maybe with a child with autism, it may take a little bit longer for it to kind of disintegrate, or they may keep it going for a lot longer than what other children may do. So I think with that, just making sure that if your child does have that behavior, that you say things in a way where you provide, first you need to provide choices. Choices are very crucial, because with choices, it gives them options, not just to maybe echo after everything you're saying. And then two, whenever it comes to a child repeating after you, instead of saying like, say apple, then just say apple. Just say the word in which you want your child to say, to help them be able to do that in real life scenarios, instead of overgeneralizing something that maybe you have taught them. If you said, okay, say apple, and then when they go out and the person say, hey, what would you like to eat? And then they say apple. So I would say definitely have options, maybe print out some pictures and have different pictures in which something that the child may be interested in. If they love nursery rhymes, have different nursery rhyme songs and have it on a wall or something, or near the TV, and take the one that they love to watch, maybe take that away every now and then and say, okay, on Friday you can't watch this, but you can watch the show every day outside of that. I would say switch it up and definitely have choices.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Choices are good. في متابعة أو متابع أعتقد سألني أن بعض أطفال التوحد عندما يتوتر يبتدي يعض إيدينا، يعض أصابعه لدرجة أنه ممكن ينزل دم. فشنو سبب هالتوتر وشنو الحل؟
So definitely response blocking procedures help, meaning that you can maybe put gloves on or things like that, and one thing that I love about ABA is the antecedent intervention. So what happens before that behavior? Oftentimes we can see the triggers. They're sometimes they're unnoticeable, but in most cases we can see those triggers, and just being able to intervene at that point before the behavior occurs. So in a situation where, let's say, if your child does not like loud noises, and you need to make sure where they're located in the house before maybe you turn the music up, or if you see a loud truck that's passing, being able to cover their ears prior to the truck passing, so that way they don't get anxious or nervous and bite themselves. So that's what we like to do in ABA, is a lot of antecedent interventions if we can. In situations where you can't, like I said, response blocking, because oftentimes children will find different methods of comfort, right? So if he can't bite his hand, maybe he might bite his arm, or he would hit his head. He will find a different outlet in order to satisfy just whatever he's experiencing. And so with that, you want to try to block it as much as possible.
متابعة عندي سألت قالت ليش أطفال التوحد يصير عندهم انهيارات كثيرة ويسمونه ميلت داون؟ إيش معنى أو ليش؟
Yeah. So the word normal, for me, it's hard to say what would be considered normal, right? Like, so for me, I think that every child is different. So that is meltdowns and tantrums, and they come about not being able to necessarily communicate what the child may want or desire. So I think that could be something that's in children with autism, along with children that don't have autism. So I think it's important, like I said, the antecedent interventions, stopping that behavior before it starts, finding out what those triggers are that lead up to the meltdown and the tantrums. And if you can do that, that would be really helpful. And if not, when times that they are having those meltdowns and tantrums, it's important to learn your child, because some children don't like to be, comforted. Some children, if they fall and hurt themselves, they rather just be by themselves. So sometimes we can make the tantrums and meltdowns a little worse. But I think the screaming and things like that, making sure too not to continue to reinforce that behavior, whether that is by giving that child attention at that time, by giving them something maybe that they wanted. So oftentimes we reinforce that type of behavior unknowingly. So I think all of those things, antecedent interventions, and what happens after those tantrums and meltdowns, that's going to be an important factor.
حسب ما فهمت منك إن معادلة بسيطة جدا، إن الأم لازم تركز، أو الشخص اللي يرعى هذا الطفل اللي فيه توحد، إن شنو أسباب الانهيار. إذا عرفنا سبب الانهيار نقدر نتفادى الانهيار أو نخفف من أثره. فإذا هذا هو الحل.
I think it's important. It's almost like I like to think of it as if you were to take data on your child when you first teach your child potty training. If you put them on a schedule, or if you give them a certain amount of food or drink, then you know exactly how much intake they had, what time they used the bathroom, and then it becomes a consistent thing or an easier thing. But in situations like that, it is important for parents to know what the triggers are, because oftentimes their kids can't communicate that. So we have to pay a lot more attention to a child maybe with special needs than we do with our neurotypical kids. And that sometimes can be a negative effect on our neurotypical children, but it's something that needs to be done if your child triggers are loud noises, or if something was to simple things like flushing the toilet, or maybe a certain faucet. Or I've had some kids where they saw a spider in the bathroom one time and they never go back to that bathroom, or when they do, they are very they tense up, because they may have been afraid, but they can never, they're not there at that point to communicate that.
So nobody knows why they don't want to go.
So nobody knows exactly, but just trying your hardest to figure out what those triggers are. And like I said, another thing too is the consequence. In ABA, we practice antecedent, behavior, and consequence. So what occurs before the behavior, it leads up to the behavior. What occurs after the behavior, that is what is feeding that behavior. Either that behavior is going to continue to increase, or that behavior is going to decrease. So sometimes parents say, okay, well, you know, my child is hitting their head, but every time after they hit their head, the parent give them a piece of chocolate because that's what the child wants. The child is going to continue to hit their head to get the chocolate. So it's things like that. You know, if you know that your child want to access something, teach them a different way of accessing that. Maybe to ask. If they can't, if they don't have words, then use gestures. Pull your hand. If they cannot do that, then, you know, work on them with picture exchange things. It's different forms. There's so many different ways we communicate as humans. So, so I think that is really, really important.
Great. وصلنا لنهاية هذه الحلقة. إن شاء الله أكون جاوبت على بعض الأسئلة اللي سألوها المتابعين، سواء في الانستغرام أو القناة اليوتيوب أو الواتساب الجروبات. فأتمنى أن الحلقة كانت مفيدة، والحمد لله على النعم التي لا تعد ولا تحصى، وعلى النعم التي لم ندركها بعد. لا تنسوني الشير، سبسكرايب واللايك. شجعوني يا جماعة علشان أسجل لكم بعد حلقات مفيدة عن التوحد ومواضيع مختلفة. وإذا عندكم أي موضوع جديد حابين نتكلم فيه كتبولي في الكومنتس، وإن شاء الله راح أسجل لكم حلقة عن هذا الموضوع اللي أنتم طالبينه. فمع السلامة وإلى اللقاء.